Welcome back to the Critics Corner. I'm Andrew Branca with the Waxahachie Sun, and I'm here with Mr. David Dunn with Southlake Style Magazine. And we've got a real treat for you. It's another music biopic here about probably the most well-known singer of like ever. He's been known by several titles. The King. Mr. Taking Care of Business. We're talking about Elvis Presley. There's a new movie out called Elvis. So that's what we're going to be talking about today is Elvis, and not only about the film, but his basic impact as a pop icon and icon of like Americana. I mean, that's kind of what Elvis is. So before we dive into this review, take a look at this trailer from the new movie Elvis, now in theaters.
There are some who'd make me out to be the villain of this here story.
Let's don't let a good thing die.
Are you born with destiny? Or does it just come knocking at your door?
He's a young singer from Memphis, Tennessee. Give him a warm hayride welcome. Mr. Elvis Presley.
Get a haircut, buttercup.
In that moment, I watched that skinny boy transform into a superhero. Was my destiny. I wish to promote you, Mr. Presley. Are you ready to fly?
I'm ready. Ready to fly.
Tomorrow, all of America will be talking about Elvis Presley.
Presley, try not to move around so much during the tape.
I can't move, I can't sing.
Some people wanted to put me in jail the way I was moving.
They might put me in jail for walking across the street, but you're a famous white boy.
The way he sings is God-given, so there can't be nothing wrong with it.
Senator Kennedy has been shot. Martin Luther King has been shot to death in Memphis.
Tragedy, but it has nothing to do with us.
It has everything to do with us.
Oh, my Lord, my darling, I've hungered for.
Reverend once told me, when things are too dangerous to say, sing. I'm gonna be 40 soon, and nobody's gonna remember me. I need to get back to who I really am. And who are you, Elvis? Making the most of this thing while I can. This can all be over in a flash.
We are the same, you and I. We are two odd, lonely children reaching for eternity. The greatest show on earth.
Elvis has left the building.
If you can let our audience know a little bit about Elvis from what they've already watched here, maybe expand on that, that'd be great, Dave.
Yes, sir. So as you can obviously tell, Elvis is the story of Elvis Presley, who is obviously the number one, solo recording artist of all time. In here, he's played by Austin Butler, who hasn't been known for a lot of roles prior to this. He was most known for starring in Disney Channel and Nickelodeon movies, starring in CW's The Unexpected, Switched at Birth, the Sonara Chronicles. Most recently, he was Tex Watson in Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. but you would not recognize him at all from the facial hair and but how he, if you tried to point him out in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and you try to single him out in Elvis, despite him being the lead, you would not find him. That's how great he kind of disappears into these roles. But he takes on the role of Elvis Presley. Tom Hanks plays his manager, a shrewd, kind of conniving con artist named Colonel Tom Parker. And it's pretty much Elvis's life story, how he was initially discovered, how he fell in love with music, how he broke into the industry, kind of created a massive, cultural wave, and really everything about his career leading up to his unfortunate, tragic death. And I'm gonna get it out of the way, man. Austin Butler crushes it in this thing. Like, holy crap. I remember before even watching this movie, I was listening to the soundtrack. I didn't even look at the trailer. I just listened to the soundtrack. And I was listening to Elvis singing on there. And I was shocked to find out it was not Elvis Presley. It was Austin Butler singing as Elvis Presley. And I was like, holy crap. If that's how he sounds, like if he can just sound like Elvis on a track without me even seeing him at all, and he's that convincing, how great is he in the movie? And this is easily one of the most transformative performances I've seen this year. I presently cannot think of a more compelling, more convincing performance this year than Austin Butler's Elvis Presley. He slips into the role as seamlessly as Daniel Day-Lewis slips into the role of Abraham Lincoln. That's how much he is erased into this role. Whenever you see him on screen, you see this young, cocky, little singer, trying to get bigger and better things in life, but doesn't really know which direction to go, doesn't really know who he should trust. But he has unhinged talent. And he's so great at expressing that. I really can't express enough how much he feels like Elvis in the movie and how much he doesn't feel like a caricature. That was a big concern I had going in this movie. I was concerned he would rely too much on the impersonation aspects of Elvis to the point where it would feel like a parody. He didn't. He felt like the actual person through and through. And that was just amazing to watch on screen.
Oh, totally. And you brought up him singing in the movie. I read a little bit where, yeah, he did sing for a lot of the early stuff where maybe the recording quality wasn't as great, but there is him singing, and there's also a mixture of the real Elvis singing in the movie. But but like you said, I thought Austin was great in this movie. I mean, I didn't see Austin Butler there. I saw Elvis Presley, and he just became this person. He embodied Elvis, I just became the king right here.
The fact that, and yes, I'm glad you touched on the fact that you hear actual recordings of Elvis in the movie, and I'm not spoiling anything, but the fact that you can't tell the difference between Austin Butler's singing voice of Elvis and the actual recording of Elvis. There was a part of the movie where I was seriously second guessing. I was like, wait, is that Austin Butler? Is that Elvis? Like, the fact that you cannot tell really shows how much he committed himself to this role and how much he really nailed it. I make no exaggeration when I say I don't think another actor would be able to pull this off as well as Austin Butler did. And that's amazing to me.
Well, definitely. But I think we also got to talk about Tom Hanks. And I'm a huge Tom Hanks fan. I'd love to meet Tom Hanks. I mean, he's just
everyone would.
He's just a fun guy. I mean, you've seen him where he's hanging out with people, taking pictures, but he's also a phenomenal actor. And just anything he does, from his role in Apollo 13 to Captain Phillips to just everything in between, apart from some of his really early stuff, which he was on the show Bosom Buddies back in the day where he dressed up in drag as a woman. Don't watch that, really, really bad show. I was subjugated to that as a kid. It was really horrible. Yeah, really just kooky presence. for that TV show. But anyways, apart from that, just everything else he's done, he has the Midas touch when it comes to a role. He just makes it his own. And him as Colonel Tom Parker, I didn't know he could play a real scummy individual like him. I didn't know Tom Parker was such this evil, money grubbing, manipulative person. But man, Hanks just showed how just much of a jerk and scum this guy is. And I was like, man, I don't want to hate Tom Hanks, but I just can't help but hate this guy he's playing.
The fact that Tom Hanks plays a villain and he nails it so well really does speak to his ability as an actor. Like, I didn't think it was possible to hate Tom Hanks in a movie. You really do not like Tom Parker. He is a sleazeball if there ever has been. But he's not the only one in this movie. And as he kind of fairly points out, there's a lot of people that fed off of Elvis Presley during the peak of his career.
Oh, yeah.
And that's something I love that the movie portrayed. It didn't portray celebrity life as like this high, luxurious, glorious thing like you should be jealous of. Really, an entire industry, the world really kind of fed off of Elvis Presley and his success like leeches. And I think that really, it says something really kind of profound about celebrity, about, a Hollywood life, about, becoming obsessed or, kind of infatuated with our heroes. Like, I think there's a really meaningful message there to tell about just taking advantage of people, their talents and their gifts. And I really love that this movie showed that. They could have just gone the easy route, like just showed, oh, look at how high and powerful and pretty and shiny Elvis Presley's life was. There was definitely moments of that and celebration in the movie, but it all lines up with the harsh realities of show business. And I really love that this movie showed it. It's really kind of a cautionary tale for people going into show business, really.
Yeah,
whether
definitely.
it's the Hollywood space or music or whatever it is.
Well, I mean, Tom Parker not only leached off him, but he had friends, he had families. I mean, the man created an entourage of people that were on his payroll just because Elvis felt bad for him or he wanted to help him out, and they played on his emotion like that. I mean, what's interesting is Elvis is still one of the top recording artists today. I mean, people make the Elvis Presley estate, I mean, they make tons of money off of him. His family is still making tons of money off of his image and his recordings and branding. I mean, have you ever been to Tennessee and seen Graceland? I mean, that's kind of like that's a shrine to Elvis and this image they have kind of perverted of him, that he's just this symbol of America. And not saying I dislike Elvis or his music, but I mean, he's really gone beyond what he really wanted to be, which was a good son who wanted to help his family out of financial difficulty. And you kind of got to see that a little bit of that the real Elvis, so to speak, rather than the image from his movies or from his television appearances or what you see on a lunchbox or whatnot. You got to see what he was feeling at the time and how his life was impacted by all these people who were just sponging off of him. And it broke my heart just to see how his life just went from the man just having this extraordinary talent. He said it right at the end of the movie where he was performing in Vegas, and he told Parker that you have me playing in this gilded cage. And I'm like, wow, that's just incredibly profound statement about your life. And I was like, wow.
There were so many really powerful moments in here, and you really kind of hit the nail on the head. It's not so much that the movie portrays the grandeur of Elvis Presley's life. It does, but it really shows you who the person is behind the singer, behind the performer, behind the dancer, behind the actor, behind the celebrity, behind the star. It really gives you a humanistic behind the veil look at who Elvis was and what he struggled with. And I really appreciate that. It's not very often where you get that in biopics. You usually try to, color things up and make them not seem as bad as they were. But this movie shows you the beautiful and the ugly. And I really appreciate the fact that it did that. It really made you feel like you were looking back at a slice of American history in a very bold and vivid way.
Yeah, another good biopic that really does it about a musician is it's the film that came out a few years ago about James Brown. I believe it was called Get On Up, and that was just incredible. I mean, it gave a perspective on James Brown's life that you normally wouldn't see. I mean, Chadwick Boseman played him in the movie, and I thought that portrayed a pretty accurate picture of who James Brown was, like this movie did with Elvis. I mean, there's been tons of movies made about Elvis over the years, or documentaries or whatnot. Or, I mean, there was one a few years ago with Kevin Spacey called Elvis and Nixon, which was about Elvis's visit to the White House. That was on Netflix. It's actually a really good movie, apart from Spacey, who he is today. But it's a good movie, though. Not endorsing Kevin Spacey at all and what he has done, but the movie's actually pretty good. But I think as far as just a genuine look on who Elvis was as far as film goes, maybe it did take a few liberties in it, but I think it gave you the essence of Elvis Presley and some of the stuff he went through in his life.
Yeah. Were there embellished elements? I think you could definitely argue that, but at the end of the day, I really want just emotional truth. I want to know who this person was. I want to know what their story was. I want to know what their demons were. Director Baz Luhrmann portrays all that wonderfully in this movie, and the fact that they cast a relatively lesser known actor in the lead, and the fact they knocked it out of the park. I'm endlessly impressed with this production, with this crew. With the casting director, with the director himself, Baz Luhrmann, and especially Austin Butler. I did not think it was possible to deliver a performance of Elvis Presley this convincing and not make it feel cartoonish. Like it feels genuine. It feels like who the real Elvis Presley was, and it's phenomenal.
No, I totally agree. So, on a scale of 1 to 10 stars, what do you give this movie?
I'm going to give this one a solid 9, Andy. I do love the movie at large. I do think the first act of this movie does struggle with what other Baz Luhrmann movies have struggled, which is the editing is super choppy. The cuts are very quick, and the camera's moving around everywhere. The first act feels very jarring. But that's quintessential, Baz Luhrmann. He had the same issues in Moulin Rouge as he did in The Great Gatsby. But the movie picks up quite considerably in the second act. And whenever it gets to the emotional payoff at the end in the third act, the movie's just a rousing, amazing time. And I really can't give enough credit to Baz Luhrmann, Austin Butler, and Tom Hanks alike.
Definitely. I kind of feel the same way. The beginning of it was a little jumbled, but once it found its footing there, it really took off. And I also give it a 9 out of 10. I thought it was really good. Solid movie. It's something I'd watch again and probably a few other times. So it was a good movie. I mean, go see it. It's out in theaters. I don't believe it's streaming yet. So it's something it's something that you need to go see while it's out in theaters to enjoy.
Definitely. And I will say one more thing. If the Academy does not give Austin Butler at least an Oscar nomination for this role for Elvis Presley, I will throw a guitar through a window. That's a promise right there.
I would say this is probably the only time you'll be able to see Elvis on a big screen format, unless you go to a venue that has him and Tupac as holograms. So,
You're not wrong.
I'm not wrong there. That is a thing, unfortunately, and it's kind of weird. But well, that's gonna do it for today's edition of the Critics Corner. So if you have any thoughts, questions, or suggestions, please email us. Hit us up on social media, in the Critics Corner on Facebook, and we'll be glad to chat movies with you. So we'll see you guys back next week, and take care.
Take care, everybody.